Greetings and salutations, dear viewers, and welcome back to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV. Last time, we tackled Midas 2. And so today, we're moving on to the next step, Midas 3. The interesting thing I feel about Midas 3 is that it feels more like the final boss of Midas than 4. 4 is just an experience all in and of itself. So let's queue up for Midas 3, the Arm of the Sun. Queue is just a little bit longer than the second one. This is hands down the most difficult of the 4 Midas areas. So it goes to reason not as many people want to do this one. Now for the beginning of this, you're going to be dividing into 2 groups, so pay attention to where the rest of the people in the party go. Specifically, tank, pay attention to where the other tank goes. Healer, pay attention to where the other healer goes. DPS, wait until the tanks and healers have gone through the things, and then just pile in, it doesn't matter where. Because you can see there are 8 things in front of us: exhaust, ducts, alpha, and beta. You're going to want 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS to go in either one. Our tanks, I don't believe were paying attention. And so we're here with a healer, 2 DPS, and I think somebody else is still deciding where he wants to go. Everybody else is over on the other side, and they're off over there fighting and crap. And I'm not about to just stand over here and wait because somebody's being a dumb butt. I can tank this crap, what? Ideally, you want to come in here with a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS. Just that simple. Knock them down. However, if either one group is having a hard time, or you didn't split evenly, once one group is done with its individual enemies, a passage opens up that lets you join the rest of your group for the rest, or to help them with their fight. This now moves us to the next area where we teach you that spikes hurt. You still have to divide up once again, so remember where you went the first time, easiest thing to do, or if this is your chance to fix it if you messed it up the first time. Standing on the spike simply does a small amount of damage over time. You don't want to stand on them more than you have to, but it's not a big deal if you have to stand on them. And this time we got a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS. Hooray! I joined a little bit late because I couldn't figure out where everybody went and I wanted to try to fill an empty spot, but what are you gonna do? For the most part, the enemies aren't anything too special. Random enemies that we've been fighting all along. And by random, I mean we haven't actually fought in a lot of the Midas versions of these guys, but it's still just goblins, nothing fancy. When both teams are done, both passages are open. The small area over here is usually covered in spikes and the far side walled off, but once everything's cleared, you can run over and go down the conveyor, taking you to the actual boss of Midas 3. Quick thinks all thoughts himself. This is the big bad, the ruler of the Illuminati. If there was a final fight, this would be it, especially considering the difficulty of this particular fight. You'll notice a lot of spikes. Try not to stand on them. You'll notice 4 squares in the far corners of the arena. You don't need to be in these for the most part, but they do play an important role in the mechanics as the fight goes on. The center of the arena is where the vast majority of the battle is going to take place. So as usual, the fight starts out somewhat typically. You see a purple marker over somebody's head there. That means Quick Thinks is about to use Sizzle Beam, which is simply a directional AoE pointed at that person. So try not to stand in a group of everybody. You're gonna get hit by it, but you can at least avoid everybody else getting hit by it. Other AoEs to pay attention to are the large circular ones you saw there. Those actually target on somebody. So be prepared for somebody to have to move. You see him ready Zoom Doom and fly up in the air. They were a little bit off screen, but you saw Musa there have a large circular mark over their head. This means Musa is going to be targeted by Zoom Doom, grabbed and picked up and taken into one of the 4 quadrants around the outside edge of the arena. Anybody who happens to be grabbed alongside that person will also be grabbed and taken into that cage. So you want to make sure only one person gets grabbed. Some are better than others to have multiple people grabbed, but especially some, like one in particular, you really want only one person hit. If at all possible, just only ever have only one person hit. Now what happens is something different happens each time he uses Zoom Doom. You'll be grabbed and taken to a different quadrant of the arena. And while this is going on, the rest of the party is going to have to deal with an ad or two that spawns. Moose is being grabbed again. It's poor luck. Now in the very first quadrant, not the one that Moose is being dragged to this time, in the very first quadrant, where you were taken was a heated room, where you take damage for every action that you take while you're in there. So just don't move. There's actually a padlock on it. Moose is just not having good luck. There was a padlock on the first cage, and once you're done with the ad, because if you don't kill the ad in time, the ads will give everybody a bad time and start doing some pretty nasty damage. Some AoEs, I believe. But you need, once everybody kills the ad, you need to go over and kill the padlock. That will free the person from the first cage. The second cage is going to involve an ad spawning in there with you. You're actually on a very tight time limit this time around, and if you don't kill the ad in time, you just die. When you have or you get a status effect on you, and when the timer on that reaches 0, you die. This, as I said, is a reasonably tight time limit, and you're going to want to go all out against that ad. Don't hold back, or you may not make it in time. Now, as the fight goes on, you eventually see Shinoa, Quick Thinks' cat, spawn in the arena, and the spikes lower. This is your key, at least for the tanks, to grab Quick Thinks and start pulling him around the arena. You want to keep him away from Shinoa, because Shinoa will periodically spawn that heart, the true heart. DPS need to kill that true heart as soon as physically possible, because if you don't kill it in time, it starts speeding up, and if it reaches Quick Thinks, it gives him a stacking buff, and he does unreasonable damage if you get more than 1 or 2 stacks on it. The spikes are down for this part of the fight, though, so you can run around at your leisure, keeping Quick Thinks away from everybody else. You'll also notice a large circle, a large sphere, start rolling around the room called Weight of the World. Keep an eye on this. If you get hit by it, it will do 9,999 damage to you. It moves slowly, though, and in a pretty predictable pattern. Just keep an eye on it. Now, we saw just a moment ago the pattern effectively reset. The pattern at this point is much the same as it was at the start, only a little bit harder. We saw another Zoom Doom. The third one in the cage involved being a healer. This will always be a healer. Or maybe that was the tank one. I think this is the healer. Yes, the third one was the tank one, and it will always be a tank. You'll spawn in there with a very large ad that just does a lot of damage, so tanks are pretty good at not getting killed by them. The tank needs to kill this ad. I don't believe the time limit is nearly as strict as it is for the DPS, and the tank can come out and be free. The fourth will always be a healer. The healer will be trapped in the cage, and there will be a large vent in the middle of the arena, or in the middle of the cage, that poison gas is coming out of. The healer needs to stand over this gas, effectively plugging it up, and just heal themselves until time runs out and the cage opens. If they don't stand on this, the entire arena is filled with gas, and everyone takes damage over time. The first person grabbed for these cages can be random. It can be any job. The second one will always be a DPS, the third one will always be a tank, the fourth one will always be a healer. After the fourth, it repeats back to the beginning. And that is effectively the fight. There's also a tank swap mechanic. I believe the move is called Uplander Doom that puts a stacking buff, or a stacking debuff on the tank. And after a certain number of debuffs, or a certain number of stacks, you'll want to tank swap out a different tank. Or, if one tank can simply endure it, that's also an option. Another mechanic here at the end are these bombs, which they're chained to they chain to each person. They will run. You will want to run away and get the explosions away from each other. Taking one explosion, not that big a deal. But the explosion puts a vulnerability up debuff on you for a very brief amount of time, like a second or two. That really only means if you have two bombs near enough each other that you will get hit by one of those vulnerability up debuffs before another explosion hits you, you will die. So don't get hit by two explosions, but getting hit by one, not that big a deal. We're back to the runabout now, where Shinoa is out and about. You need to kill the True Hearts, you need to keep Quick Thinks away from Shinoa, and keep your eye on the large metal balls. There's two of them now, just a little bit more to keep your eye on. Again, after the first rotation, the fight is pretty much done. You've seen the mechanics. However, the second rotation is going to be more difficult than the first. All the mechanics are amped up ever so slightly, as you can see here, with the two Weight of the Worlds running about now. And once this phase is done and Shinoa decides to go bother somebody else for a little bit of time, the entire fight will repeat. You see Zoom Doom about to target somebody, they're going to be put in the flame cage there. This is the same one that we started with, where every action that they have will do damage to them. Now the padlock on the outside of this cage, you can actually attack from the inside, but don't be tempted to, because doing that, it will be an action that you are doing yourself, which means you're going to be taking more and more damage. Attacking it is a quick way to get yourself killed. Be patient. Once we're done with the ad, we will come and help, though it would be super keen if somebody other than just me would attack this padlock. They're helping a little. The Black Mage is helping. Musa didn't help until the last minute. Musa's probably new, I imagine. That is effectively it for the fight, though. You've seen all the mechanics at this point. Aside from general raid-wide AoEs and the like that we've seen thus far, there's not much I haven't really spoken on, so simply DPS him down, and soon enough, he'll be dead. This is perhaps one of the hardest ones, simply because getting people to act as they need to while they're inside the cages, getting people to not hit other people with the cages, not getting hit by Weight of the World, keeping the True Heart stun-locked so you can kill it in time. There's just a lot going on that a lot of people can mess up. For an experienced group, it's not that hard, but especially for somebody not quite on their A game, there's a pretty good chance you bite it. So until next time, everyone, that was Alexander Midas III. Next, the grand finale.